Hello, my name is Cheryl Collins and welcome to this episode of Did You Know? Today's lesson is a closer look at Ancestry Library Edition, an online genealogical database that features millions and millions of names in over 7,000 databases. Let's take a closer look. Okay, so clicking in from the library's homepage brings you up to this home screen of Ancestry Library Edition. One thing worth noting is that this particular database is not available from home. So this particular interface, you do have to come to the library or the Pearl Street Library to have access to. We don't have remote capability for this. But this is the home screen that you're going to get after clicking into from our website. And again, you can see a very straightforward, simple search page. This home button is always going to bring you back to this screen. It's a good jumping off point, entering a few names here and there that you can search on. It also has an advanced search capability that's going to allow you to add more variables, and we'll talk about that in just a minute, but you can see the advanced screen allows you a little bit more. And then there's also the capability of the search button up top bringing you to particular places that you want to go. So if you're just looking for census information, you can click here, or birth, death, and marriage records. Any vital statistic records and collections are going to be here as well. And again, all the different categories that are within this particular database. And as I said before, there are over 7,000 databases within this resource. So a quick 10-minute presentation is difficult to really touch on all of those databases that are available. But certainly we're going to take a look at the census information and how it differs a little bit from Heritage Quest. And also, a lot of you may subscribe to Ancestry.com as a personal subscription. And there are some nuances in the Ancestry Library Edition that are a little bit different. So we're going to talk about that too. But let's go ahead and get started with a name. I'm going to be searching on the last name Baturn, and we will just leave it at that, just to show you what the capability of what we have here. There is an opportunity to enter a person's first name and then a place that you think your ancestor may have lived. So I'll go ahead and enter Massachusetts, just so we can narrow it down a little bit. Certainly not a very common name, but we will narrow it down to Massachusetts just to be easier. Now Ancestry goes ahead and does some thinking for you, and then it gives you some possibilities into what you may want to choose. So Massachusetts, USA, or then Massachusetts, Boston, U.S. Military Forces. So if you were searching in that particular realm, certainly this could be helpful, but just general, straightforward Massachusetts, USA is going to be good for our purposes today. So then going ahead and clicking on the search button, and you can see how it differs a little bit from the Heritage Quest and how it arranges things and how it returns things to your screen. It takes a few seconds here to get the return, but it will go forward and it'll bring us a list of any Baturns that may be in any census records. Remember, we didn't choose a particular year. We're searching just across the board in all of the databases that are included in this. And you can see right from the top that there's over 40,000 returns on this particular name. Any relation to the name Baturn or the name Massachusetts are going to come up here. And it also gives you a chance to refine your search. Certainly 40,000 records is a lot to look through. So there's a chance to refine your search here, maybe add a variable or two to try to narrow that search down for you a little bit. But you can, scrolling through here, you can see how it returns things a little bit differently than Heritage Quest. It does give you a very simple list of the resource that it's in. So here's a link to the 1920 census. And then a little bit of summary over here as to what may be included. So there's a person's name, there's the person's spouse, when they were born, and also where they were living at the time of this particular resource. And simply hovering over the link will also bring you a lot of information, and some folks stop right here and just gaining the information that they need from this little window. You can see a lot of different categories come up in that little hover But this is the actual full record of that hovering. So you can see right from here there is a link to this family living in Springfield, Massachusetts in the 1920 census. Now this is, as I said, some people stop here and print this. View printer-friendly version right over here. If you click on there, you get a nice clean copy for printing. But again, the primary source is the census itself, and that original record is available through Ancestry as well. We'll ask you to install an enhanced viewer, but the straightforward image viewer is actually works pretty well, so you can kind of fast forward through that if your computer comes up with that information. It does take a few seconds to load the original images, but you can see it splits your screen. And down here on the bottom, it gives you the names and the ages of the people in the household, but it also cleans things up a little bit so you can read things a little bit better. And then up here, of course, is the primary resource. We can move this down a little bit and hide it. And then just have, again, access to the record itself, which, again, is going to be somewhat difficult to read in that it's small. Some of the writing may not be clear at the time. A lot of it could be faded. But there is the opportunity to always zoom in and zoom out and get closer to the records that you want. Now, again, all along the top are going to be the original headings of the census categories. So where they were living, name, relation, citizenship, and all that information. And even that at times can be difficult to see because they are crunched up a little bit. They do become clear after a while. So it's one of the benefits of this Ancestry is that you can print out a blank version of this form with all of the categories on top more clear and typed out. Someone has recreated these forms, not in their original term, but just so you can see what the categories are and what all these tiny little boxes, what the text is in there. So there may be dates or names or yes and no's, and it's not really easy to tell from the census record what this says, but certainly the clear images will help you. And again, from the census records, you can get a lot of information that may not be clear in any other searching, and it might give you just clues to try to figure out where to continue your search backwards and finding your family line. So here on the record, we can see Alfred and Rosalina Battern, ages 31 and 24, with their sons Amy and Frederick, living in Springfield, Massachusetts. So certainly, I was delighted to find this, as this is my grandfather as a 2-year-old, so I thought that was pretty interesting to find. In the record itself, or on the display screen itself, there is an opportunity to return back where you were. There is a breadcrumb trail up top that will lead you to broaden your search a little bit. So not having the knowledge that they lived in Springfield, Ward 3, District 122, I certainly didn't have that knowledge going into this, but now that may be some key information when searching on other records within the state or even within the county and the city, that those numbers may come into play a little bit more because some things don't always line up nicely and say Springfield City, Hampden County, Massachusetts. So it does help to have that more information that's listed up top. So again, going back to the return is going to bring us back to our snapshot. But then back one more screen is going to bring us back to our original list. And again, the Battern family is living in the Springfield area in the 1910s, 1920s, and all of the names having to do with that family are going to come up here. So not only is Alfred as the head of the household here in the 1920 census, but his wife and his 2 children are searchable as well. So one of the changes from the Heritage Quest is that you couldn't search on a wife's name or a child's name, but here it has access to the whole family, and they're all accessible. So you may not know what somebody's parent's name was or their children, but they are all listed here. And again, going back to different types of records that are available, there's access to the Social Security Death Index, and this is a record of deaths in the country after a certain period of time. So this gives you a little bit more information as to a death date. Scrolling down a little bit more, we can see main marriages. This happens to be my grandfather and grandmother's wedding marriage record. Not the record itself, but certainly just some dates that are certainly helpful in my research. Also, the states have their own death indexes. So here's the death index for both of my grandparents. So again, and from these records, you're going to get a lot of information that's going to just take you back either one generation, or it might give you some information in the same generation that's definitely going to be helpful to your research. World War II draft registration cards, which is interesting, knowing that my great-grandfather registered for the draft for World War II. So just having that kind of knowledge is certainly interesting to folks doing genealogical research. Now over here on the left, there are links that will narrow your searching a little bit. Right now we've got it open at all categories, and these are the categories there are. There's census and voter list, and we're stuck in the all category. But if, for instance, you were just interested in vital records, birth, marriage, and death, you could click here. Just military records, just immigration and travel. It's going to narrow your searching down a little bit. And so if you have the census information that you already need, you might want to take a look in some schools and some towns have their yearbooks in here. Some schools, some towns rather have their directories, their voter lists and things like that. So there might be some nuances within this resource that may not be accessible unless you actually go to the schools or towns in question and get the information. So again, I want to go back to the home page and show you quickly the level of access that's available in this database. Down under our search box, there are opportunities to search on a person's name, but also adding a life event. So if in any instance you knew that they were born in a certain year or a certain place, you could enter that location here. If you happen to know of somebody's name, a wife's name or a husband's name, a child's name, you can enter that here. And that's going to just, as I said, further refine your search, especially searching on a big name like Smith or Jones or Collins for that matter, in trying to wade through the millions of records that are in here. So any little bit of information that you have, or any hunch that you might have, or any theory that you might have, try to plug it in and see what kind of information you get, because you never know where your hunches are going to lead, and certainly they'll point you in some kind of new direction. But I wanted to focus down here on the bottom. There are links to the various census collections that are in this resource, and you can see from this very short list here, the U.S. Census collection is not the only one in here. There's access to the United Kingdom, Germany, Canada, and Australia. Those are complete census records for what's currently available online, or what's currently allowed to be online. So again, international in scope, if you have relatives overseas or ancestors overseas, or even living overseas for a period of time, these resources are going to help you too. And under more collections, certainly it is not just listed to, or limited to census records and voter lists. As I said, there are some vital statistics in here. There's information about immigration and travel, so anyone that entered the country within a certain amount of time, their immigration records will be here, and that's kind of interesting to note as well. But this link here to all databases is going to take us to a screen, just the beginning, tip of the iceberg, so to speak, of all the resources that are available in this particular database. And you can filter them by dates, and they start in the 1600s. Some start in the 1600s, I should say, when applicable, and then go through the 1900s all the way up. Currently, the census information is up to 1930. There are directory listings and yearbooks and local listings up to the 1990s. So that certainly, and I'm not sure what's, I'll try that. Link again, I'm just going to click on, okay, so this is, I clicked it on the recent databases, and these are recent changes or recent updates that Ancestry Library Edition has posted in their particular database. So someone who uses the database a lot, this might be helpful, because things change day to day, and they can very well give you more information than what you already have, or your search might lead you here that a new resource that you didn't know existed. So you can see just in the last couple weeks, going back to the 9th, going back just to December, you can see all the changes that have made, or all the additions that have been made to this database. So certainly searching on this recent list is going to perhaps help in your search capabilities. I do want to get to down here where it says all all of the census collections that are available. And you can see it sets it up pretty simply for you to use. There are categories here available to you. And again, the searching capability is the same within, or the searching mechanism is the same through each census. It just broadens it out beyond the U.S. borders. So you can see that if there's any Biterns living in England at this particular time, whatever time may be in question. So you can certainly take a look at that. And again, the searching capabilities are always up on top as well. So you can click into birth, death, and marriage and just know that you're going to be getting vital statistics. You won't be getting census records. So that's helpful as well. If we search on the name Bitern in vital statistics, and we can say lived in Massachusetts, we're just going to get the Biterns that lived in Massachusetts that have a vital statistic event in the state of Massachusetts. So death records, birth records, and those types of things. And again, it goes out and searches, and it tells us a little bit more. Now, we had chosen Massachusetts. Maine marriages came up because, or Maine marriages, there was a wedding that took place in Portland, Maine, but there was one of the spouses from Springfield, Mass. So any relation, the marriage doesn't necessarily have to happen in Massachusetts. If one of the two parties is from Massachusetts, it's going to include that. So that's going to narrow things down for you as well. There's obituary collections in here. Here's some Missouri marriage records. So again, vital statistics. You're not being bogged down with hundreds and hundreds of records from the census that may be included. So, and you can also see that a lot of the names that are coming up aren't necessarily Bitern. And that's because Ancestry Library Edition has a built-in SoundX. And it's already searching on names that are spelled like or sound like Bitern. So while I don't think this is a relative, it could very well be, in that there were mistakes made in census records, there were mistakes made on vital statistics record, and frankly a lot of the names are spelled alike and sound alike, and for that reason they're listed here in a search on Bitern. But you can see 192 vital statistics records having to do with Bitern in Massachusetts as well. So again, it narrows it down by category. There are marriage and divorce records and also obituary, death, burial, and cemetery records if available. So there's a lot of, it's really difficult to go through the entire database of Ancestry Library Edition. It's literally just the tip of the iceberg. There's over 7,000 databases to look at within this resource. But I think the primary resource for a lot of folks, and the primary reason they use this, is for the census collections, and not just U.S. Census collections, but a lot of the international census information that's available as well. So again, that's certainly one of the strengths. Now, I clicked on U.S. Census records, but also down on the bottom, you can choose by year the census records that are available. And we had seen in Heritage Quest that 30, 40, and 50 were not available. But they are in here in a browsable format. So again, it's not going to be something that you can search on. You kind of have to have some knowledge ahead of time what you're searching, because it's just browsable. And again, the charts and forms I had mentioned earlier, there are some different forms that you can download through here. If you're doing your own research and you need access to pedigree charts, you can download and print here. There's also some access to research calendars, extract records, family group sheets. Here's the link to U.S. Census forms that I had talked about, and these are the cleaned up versions of things that may be difficult to read in the original primary documents. These are, as I said, cleaned up versions. They're actually typed out so that we can read them. They're not the original fuzzy images that we have on the record itself. So these are going to come up in just a simple PDF file. And printing this out, you can certainly take a look at the categories that are up top here and all the headings that are listed there that may be difficult to read on the primary documents themselves. So using these as a reference point is usually a good idea, and I know a lot of folks that do it and have had a lot of success with it. So all of the originals, so to speak, are here through Ancestry Library Edition as well. And then again, a lot of the other census that may be available here, the Canadian Census and the UK Census forms are available too. So there's a lot certainly to go over, and We do offer periodically, we offer classes that come into the library, and we go over some of the resources that are available through Ancestry Library Edition. And as I said, there are quite a few nuances of this database, but just giving you a general overview so that you feel comfortable using the database, and hopefully we'll get started soon. Thank you for joining us in this episode of Did You Know? As always, if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call at the reference desk, 860-763-7511, and feel free to email me directly at cbcollins@enfield.org. Thanks again for watching.